I get to say good morning to our Caron YouTube audience on the 29th of May 2022, and also to our in-person audience and to those who are watching on live stream from positions around the campus. Really grateful and excited and a little charged up from the musical experience we just had. I have a sequence of topics, and the topic for this morning, the single word for it is freedom. And for me, in speaking about addiction recovery and freedom, it takes me right back to my early beginnings in my recovery. So I'm grateful to say, as a person in long-term recovery, that I began my continuous abstinence from alcohol and other mind and mood-altering chemicals in 1989. And I just can't believe it. I never thought it would be possible even to string together a week, much less 33 years. But early on, one of the very first experiences that I had was I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and there was a guy there who had copied a piece of paper that I would learn later came with words on it that came from the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, the sort of core literature of the AA movement. And this piece of paper was entitled The Promises. And those of you who are literate about that form of supported recovery will know the promises. And it turns out there are all kinds of promises peppered through that book. The way it presents recovery is in a hopeful and optimistic way. But this particular summary suggests that at the point at which a follower of the 12-step method crests into the completion of the 9th step, various things will begin to take place. And if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through is the opening of the section. And then the first thing it says is we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. And so that came into my mind as I was thinking, I need to prepare a message on freedom. I was like, oh gosh, I remember that first AA meeting that I went to, and the first AA meeting I went to sober, and getting that piece of paper which I put on the fridge, and which helped propel me as my recovery would continue. So here I am talking about it decades later. And then it occurred to me that I was going to be speaking with you on Memorial Day weekend. And that the holiday that I was reading a little bit about it, Googling while I was away the last couple of days, is here for us to celebrate those who gave our lives to protect our national freedoms, right? So there's a simple corollary there between freedoms in one sense that we associate with our civic life and the issue of this promise of a new freedom for those who enter the journey of recovery. What does the new freedom of recovery mean is where I'm going to start going deeper. And what I want to say is that there was an old freedom. Ooh, excuse me, sorry about that. There was an old, we're back to masking staff, and I do despise it, but I'm being compliant, so I don't have the freedom to take off my mask. What was the old freedom that many, that the book points to? And I don't know, but for me, I know what I think of right away is I think of the 16-year-old brat that I was. And I don't know if any of you were brats when you were 16 or whatever, but I was rebellious, anti-authoritarian. You know, my parents were stupid, adults were stupid, government was stupid. Like if anybody presented a rule or regulation, I wanted to figure out a dodge around it. And I just thought, I did not realize I thought that freedom meant anarchy, but I think I really did. I thought that the freedom that I was supposed to be being given as an American citizen was somehow this. What I've come to hear, and we use it in treatment teams discussions all the time, talking about adults in addiction care, is people who persist into adult life thinking the rules don't apply to me. But I think that's what I came out of my family system really in some sad way wanting to carve out circumstances in which I didn't have to pay attention to the rules. And I got a little bit of that from my dear old dad, who used to have this saying, that a man's home was his castle. And that basically, in the fenced-in yard of our home, we didn't have to worry about, the government couldn't tell us what the rules were of how we would live. And I don't know if you suffer from, that's an interesting word for me to choose. I don't know if you suffer from this peculiar desire to have that kind of freedom in your life. I did. I wanted to be able to buck authority and decide which rules did and don't apply to me. And I think there's a lot of us out there. And I think it's a time in which I could go into the national scene and lose my focus on what I'm doing if I wanted to. But those of you who are with me know we live in a time of division and strife, and there's a lot of discussion of personal and civil liberties that have come up in the last couple of years, and a debate about what that really means. And I think that there is a stripe, there's a group of us that live day to day in the world, and whichever sort of end of the political spectrum you want, and who think we should be able to write our own kind of script and ticket, and nobody should be able to tell us what to do. And that was my old idea of freedom. And what I want to do as a next step in thinking about that is, what did old freedom get me? And it got me two things. It got me alienation from people who wanted me to be in, conformity, and it got me tailspin. Because it's an old recovery saying, my best thinking got me here, right? And I didn't look really great in 1988. I began my recovery in 1989, but that was because I could barely put a toothbrush in my mouth. I had managed to persuade a woman to let me take her hostage as my first wife, but I was not a good husband to her, even over all of the years of our first marriage, in a variety of ways, because I was because this was a piece of it. I didn't know how to do allegiance and commitment and, faithfulness in the deeper sense of the word, like in the sense of really being all in anything. And so I didn't do the all in that a marriage I now know as a 60-plus-year-old man deserves. And I pray I am doing that much better now in my second marriage. And so I think that rebellious streak is alienating. It does push against the boundaries of belonging in whatever you belong to. Unless you are, gathering up as a group of people and holding up with, guns and protecting yourself against some future adversity. And then you have a small group of people, but that still is alienating. It's a small group that alienates itself against a larger society. So I think that the anarchic idea of freedom is essentially one that's pretty darn lonely, and I don't think it's maximally effective in terms of how we live life. I think that this is another one of my themes that comes up oftentimes that I like to speak about here, is that how much we as human beings depend on one another in order to flourish. And I didn't believe that when I was a kid, but I have seen the truth of it. I have seen that we can do better together than we do alone. I think that recovery one of the things I like to tell our clients is that the only thing I know will not work for them is Go It Alone Anonymous. I really deeply believe that this is a circumstance. If you've gotten to the point where you admitted here as a client that if you think you're going to beat that with solitary accomplishment, I think your outcome probabilities are extremely low. So collaboration is the key to a variety of things in human life, rather than this bizarre, weird individualism and lonerism that I somehow idealized coming out of my childhood family system in the early 70s, in which I was forming those ideas. And so if you think about that, when I'm 28 years old, I crash and burn. My drinking is no longer even any kind of refuge, and my relationships are absolutely in crisis, not just my personal marital relationship, but my family relationships and my ability to function in friendships and all that sort of stuff has dwindled. And I mean, the best connection I probably had at that time is my connection, which is my dope dealer, right? And that was the word. And my ultimate go-to was Johnny Walker Red. That was my, that you know, and I think when alcohols have personal names, it tells you something about how they function in an alcoholic's life. Is that Jack Daniels or Jose Cuervo or Johnny Walker become our relationship. And when I was awakening to this call and possibility, I don't want to belabor this story because I always try to finish at a certain moment just to give room for other pieces of the service, but I realized that I needed to give recovery a try through examples like my younger brother who had gotten clean and sober, and my godfather, and other people. And so I was like, I knew that the continuing of the drinking would not work. That my liver would implode. I had seen what cirrhotic livers did. I had seen a family member vomiting blood and nearing death just from alcoholism. I had seen the grim face of it. But I thought, honestly, in beginning recovery, I was surrendering a freedom. And I was a little anxious and crabby about it. I didn't watch my language on tape, but I was not hopeful. I was not optimistic. I was not positive. I was thinking that, like, I was throwing in the towel. And like, no, I guess I won't ever be able to drink again, was really where I was. And if I had been in a place like Caron, I would have, like many of you, I would have talked about this in terms of almost like a jail sentence. And when do I get released? And I would have thought of this as punitive and definitely as a limitation on my personal freedom. Because it went against all of those ideas that were so formed in me. So here I am in this AA meeting, and this person says, no, in Alcoholics Anonymous, you trade the ostensible freedom of the freedom to drink and be a jerk for a new set of freedoms. I'm not saying you're jerks, but I'm just telling you, I was a jerk. I was really a jerk. And a big part of that was my insistence on the drinking. I protected it like the child with an ice cream cone, like, argh. And the meanness of that today is so clear to me. And what I want to share with you is something about what the new freedoms have been in my life that I had no insight into. And they begin with very mundane ones, like being able to put a toothbrush in my mouth in the morning. And being able to know what it's like to not wake up hung over and with that pasty breath of the grim sort of the day-to-day gerbil wheel of continued consumption of substances and the rallying to sort of fake it with your day job or whatever, and then the idealizing of the 5 o'clock, like cocktail time, and it's 5 o'clock somewhere. That insanity, to be freed from that, was initially buoying. It was like, wow, this is awesome. I don't have a headache every morning. I remember I bought a new car in my first year of sobriety, and my wife at that time said, can you really afford that car? And I went to my checkbook. At that time, we used these things called checkbooks. And you actually wrote down when you cut a check, what you did. And I said, look at the checkbook. It is liquor store, ATM, liquor store, ATM, maybe electric bill, liquor store, ATM. And the ATM was the dope dealer. I said, I can afford the car. So this was the beginning of the nobler and more deep and meaningful freedoms that would emerge, besides not just vomiting when I tried to wake up in the morning, the dry heaves. And it was this idea of awakening to regaining integrity and dignity and vision and purpose and horizons. I got a chance to dream and decide what I wanted to do. I went back to school. I remember I started going to AA meetings all the time. I was in this recovery meetings, and I was first NA and then NAAA and then more AA. And I remember I was in this AA meeting. We had this guy named Ken. He was an old college professor. He was retired. He was down at the beach, and I told him I was applying to graduate school. And he said to me, "You are the kind of person who should have gone to graduate school right out of the gate." He was so excited for me. And then he said, what kind of graduate school are you in? And I said, "I'm going to get an MBA." And he was like, "Oh." But I'm so glad I did the MBA, because not only has it helped me in my future life, but it also made me realize I didn't want a business career. And right after I finished my MBA, I went into divinity school. And I had gone from, that's another freedom I got. I got a freedom to decide to be a person of faith. I had crossed that off in some anti-religious, I hate, religious institutions and their crap, and people who follow them are lemmings, and, it's the crutch, it's the opioid of the masses, and I knew all those quotes, and I could tell you about how Freud and Marx criticized religious institutions and what folly it was to be a person who, and in my recovery, I realized that I didn't have to be this flag-waving anti-religiosity jerk. And then I could begin to ask questions about why in all of human history has basically every community and culture constituted what today I like to call wisdom traditions. These things, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Confucian, Taoism, Christianity, Baha'i, we could go on. There are many, many of these wisdom traditions. Answer some fundamental need in human community, or we wouldn't generate them. Are they flawed? Of course they are. And I'm going to squeeze in one side joke. This is one of my favorite AA silly jokes. So a guy says to his sponsor, "My wife wants me to go to church, and I'm totally against that crap." And the sponsor says, "Okay, why?" "Well, churches. They're full of liars, cheats, bigots, and thieves." The sponsor says, "Well, you should fit right in." So, that's sadly as close to true as I'm going to get. And let me get back on my trajectory. The point that I wanted to make is that this thing that we do here is the breaking of an imprisonment, not the taking away of a freedom. If you think of your 28 or 42 days here as imprisonment, you are missing the reality, I believe, which is that the months and years that preceded your getting here have been the imprisonment. And this is the coaching you back into making you ready to be free in a different way. And free to live, and free to love, and free to make relationships, and free to belong, and free to choose allegiances, to belong. If you want to go left or right and all that stuff that's out there, you have that choice again. To be not stuck. To bond and to form and to choose and to risk and to dare instead of to turtle and to tunnel and to isolate and to crumble and to die. A last thought, Memorial Day. I don't mean to take away from it, and if any of you are persons who have served in military families, I have a stepson who is in the Coast Guard right now, and my dad served in the military, and we don't have any Memorial Day folks that I'm really aware of that we would honor that died in the service of our country, but I also really believe that military service is this amazing thing, and I'm so proud of Jared for who he is and what he does. And he surrendered a lot of his freedoms to protect our liberties, so it's pretty awesome. but this ultimate surrender of a life to protect our liberties is worth taking time out because we can honor. All I want to do is say that at Caron, I think about it every day. My office is right by a tree where we have the ashes of people who have died trying to get and stay sober. And we have a ton of fallen from this battle that also deserve to be remembered. Opioid death from overdose and suicide. A lot of those suicides are, and a lot of deaths are not even, like, oh, there's a shame that attaches to the suicide deaths. We don't know what they are, so the statistics are fuzzy. But a lot of our company have not made it. And I wanted to take time this morning to honor their service to us and to ask us to think about committing ourselves as soldiers in the work of sobriety and the one day at a time protection of these liberties that we are given when we surrender this stupid claim that we want to protect the right to drink or use. I'm not trying to be insulting to any of you, I'm just talking really about myself, but it was a dumb claim. And I did protect it. I fiercely yelled at my first wife about it's my money, it's my weekend, it's my business, it's my time to do with it what I want. And today I grieve that I was such a jerk. And I am so grateful that more than 10,000 days, one day at a time, I've had the chance to try and live and amend about that in the variety of ways I do. And to go on to divinity school and interfaith training and become this job that I have, which is so amazing. And to speak with you this morning. And I hope set an inspiring thought in front of you. So if you did come here going, oh, I can't believe I have to do this up, that you would contemplate maybe thinking, this could be awesome. I could get so much out of making this turn. You really can. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mark.